Welcome, Angus. So awesome to have you on the show, mate.
It's great to be here. I'm totally fascinated. I was watching the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 come on the screen. I'm like, this is the coolest thing. I love it.
It always gets me like I'm a stunned mullet. I'm like, what do I do? Do I say anything? It's going 6, 5, 4, all the way down. But it does get you ready for that model face so that when it takes a screenshot at some point, you're smiling. But mate, it's so great to finally connect. I know we've been moving this one around, or I've been moving this one around. There's been a lot happening with house fires, apartment fires, and COVID and everything like that. But it's finally great to chat. And we've just found out that your mum's from New Zealand, just across the ditch from us. And my sister used to live in Tennessee, near where you are. And
then all these little interconnectedness.
It's crazy. And we both have well, you didn't actually admit to having a love for country music. It was more the storytelling of country music that you said you loved.
Yeah. So okay. So I had just shared for all of you just tuning in that I didn't listen to country music at all when I was growing up. It was always pop and hip hop and all this other stuff, but never country. And the only country I knew was being in junior high, and I had gym duty where I had to like sit in a chair in the locker room and make sure nobody stole stuff. While everybody was in gym. Like that was my study hall. That's what I did. And the gym teacher would play WDEZ country all the time. And it was like old school Merle Haggard and all the, like really traditional stuff. Not my jam. I moved to Nashville. I have friends who are songwriters, which I think is just the coolest job because you can still go to the grocery store and nobody knows who you are and you make all the money. It's fantastic.
It's the dream.
Yeah. And now being around so many musicians who do country music, it was the storytelling. And now I listen to some of the pop country is, really cool, but I love like the rootsy stuff, like Chris Stapleton, where it's mixing some blues and some of that stuff. Oh, my jam.
But I love how you were saying it before, like it's legitimately the storytelling because with pop music and all other kinds of music, house, even tropical house, I just love the melody and the beats and everything like that, and it takes me on my own little journey. But with country music, I really resonate to the lyrics. And now that you mentioned, I've never actually thought about it. Yeah, it's the storytelling that I really love about country music, and it's so relatable.
That's the power. That's the power. Oh, they put a hook in you.
Beers, bloody boot scooting, and driving trucks. It's the general theme. But Angus, mate, you're a high performance, or you're the founder of Evolve Coaching, and you've worked with some incredible people and companies all around the world, and you're really elite at what you do with business strategy and just men's performance coaching. How did you get there? Like, obviously, there's always a story in the lead up to getting to where you are, and I'd really love to dive into that today and really understand what it was like for you in that journey and obstacles that you faced along the way and how you really handled them. Because a lot of our listeners, or even myself included, life keeps throwing stuff at us, and sometimes we're like, why me? Why me? Why me? This has got to stop. And I really, for me, when I founded the Man That Can Project, I just wanted to have access to men like you, people that I aspire to be like, who were prepared to tell me really what it took to be successful, but also the shit that happened along the way and how you felt about that as well.
Yeah. My pleasure to give you kind of the roundabout, and then you can insert and jump in anywhere you want. So the quick nutshell is going back to when I was a music promoter. See, we're tying this story in. What a great segue.
Interconnectedness, all right.
And I promoted a couple of music festivals as well. And in running this business, on the outside looked great. We had over 15,000 kids come through our doors. It was a arts-driven youth center. So ages 16 to 24 was our target market. Anyone would come in and have a cup of coffee and talk about life. And in that, we would do concerts and poetry nights. And in Little Central Wisconsin, this was a really hip, perspective on life. And they didn't really know what to do with us. But I had traveled a lot. I'd been in a lot of places around the globe. My mother, being from New Zealand, always said when I got older and got out of school, grab a backpack and go. And so every summer I'd been overseas at some place, and then we brought it all back to my hometown in Wisconsin, started this nonprofit youth center with all this music, doing the music festivals. And the major festival we had, the headliner was a band called Train. And
love Train.
right? And we had thunder showers come in. I didn't like train. I blamed them for what's about to transpire here. I've gotten over it. I've seen them in concert a couple times since. They're amazing. But I was bitter. And we lost $72,000 in that one weekend. And for our small little nonprofit, that was a massive blow. And so my wife and I moved into my parents' basement. And the next 2 years, I worked to pay it all off because I felt like I wanted to be honorable and make sure everybody got their cut. And during that season, it got harder and harder. My wife started to despise me because I wasn't bringing home money. I wasn't contributing. And I seemed to be more committed to the organization than I was to her. And I'd become a workaholic because that became my identity. And then the pain between she and I, and the fact that I didn't know how to ask for help, I was becoming really narcissistic and controlling. I was wallowing in a lot of my own pain because I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't go to my board, didn't go to the community, didn't go to anyone. I figured I can manage this thing by myself, put it on my shoulders, and I'm going to will this thing into being. I started looking at porn, got addicted to that. Out of guilt and shame, turned to alcohol. Now I'm addicted to that. Then I started sleeping around, and in short order, I blew up the business, I blew up my marriage, and I blew up my self-worth. So that created a massive, shift in how I saw myself. The next 3 years, I was a bit of a recluse. I finally sought counseling, and that was my introduction into this world of personal development. Flash forward, there was a lot in between, but I got to this place where I had written a book about that season. I was out marketing it and learning all about social business marketing in 2009, 2010. And then my brother, I have an identical twin brother who was in the marketing space in the enterprise world. He was the head of social media for a company called Salesforce, which now today is a massive company.
Yeah.
So he was there early on, and he knew all the big hitters into the marketing space. And so we ended up at South by Southwest, a big music festival, and Interactive is their tech side. And in addition, there was a dad blogging event going on at the same time. I went there because of my book, and I was writing about my experience as a dad, blah, blah, blah. And my brother on the enterprise space had the swank, hotel and expense account. I was like, bro, I'm staying with you. So at night, he dragged me all the tech parties, and he threw me in front of all of his friends saying, hey, that's so-and-so from such and such. They're a hugger, shaker, go. And I'd pretend to be my identical twin brother. And his name is Marcus. So I met, right? And so we would mess with everybody. And so 4 or 5 minutes would go by, and then he would either walk up behind them or walk up behind me and freak them the hell out. And now all of a sudden I've met, Gary Vaynerchuk to all these other enterprise names, name drop. And one of those guys in particular, I became friends with. He started a company, wanted some help. And so we started this association around innovation for enterprise companies. Coming on the back end, all the peer-to-peer space was popping. Airbnb, Lyft, Uber, there was all this disruption. There was digital transformation going on where we were moving to subscription base in our business models. Crowdfunding, crowd lending, crowd sourcing, all of that was in play. And our association was at the forefront of measuring what were the investment dollars, who are the startups to watch, and where's the disruption coming in Fortune 500 brands. Our association had 74 companies a part of it. I was managing all of that, the content, the webinars, our live events. And I'm working with Walmart, General Electric, Wells Fargo, Coca-Cola, BMW, on and on down the list with all these big brands. And I started to recognize some of the same patterns in some of these guys' lives that I had experienced working at my company that I started myself. And we'd be on calls talking about these personal issues more than we were talking about innovation or digital transformation. And that's when I recognized I had a gift. That my pain and my experience and the books I was reading and the things I was learning, the events I was going to, the conferences I was attending were all built around mindsets and built around personal development and growth, and seeing from a place of abundance and generosity, source, supply, energy, frequency, and all the woo you can do. And suddenly I have a place to insert it into my life. And that's when I started coaching. And there's a lot more to it than that, but that was the beginning. And so over the last 6 years, I've moved in the space. And I had a day job for a long time. And then finally I was making more money coaching than I was in my day job, but I was still too afraid to leave my day job because of the quote unquote security. Then the pandemic hit, and then all the security went away. And I was mad and sad for all of 24 hours. And I'm like, here we go. Let's do this. And my business has exploded. And I couldn't be more grateful. So there's the big story. Now we can dive in wherever you want.
That was really inspiring to listen to. A few things that stood out for me. One was your just integrity to pay back the money. For me, I've seen many people go through similar things and they've just dusted their hands clean of it. And, you know, everyone's got their own, there's more context to everyone's story, but the fact that you were committed to paying that back says a lot about your character as an individual. And I really want to surround myself with people who have a high level of integrity. So that really stood out for me there, that's for sure. But even it's interesting, as you said, when you've realized that you had this gift, when you're working with high or people with business strategy and stuff, a lot of it ends up coming back to personal stuff, because there's so many of us out there that don't realize how much crap we've got going on in the background of our life that impacts how we perform in other areas. And if we don't deal with it, if we don't become aware of it, it's very hard to, I guess, thrive in other areas of our life. So I think that's why what you do is so powerful, especially for, you know, not only high performers in business and in life, but just everyday people. So we've all got stuff to work on. Yeah. We've all got stuff that we can improve upon. But take us back. You said there was that 3-year journey where you became a recluse. What was that like? And what were some of the thoughts going through your mind at that point? And how did you sort of dig your way out of that?
Lots of Camel Turkish Gold cigarettes and bottles of wine. And I say that tongue in cheek, and yet it was altogether true. Like, so much of that season was one step forward, 2 steps back. And when I experience someone that I'm talking to or is going through really difficult times, I try to tell them, you don't recognize the level of resilience that is being developed in you. And when you go through these seasons, it feels like the world is coming to an end. I was divorced on December 23rd, 2003. On December 25th, I'm sitting underneath my Christmas tree. All of my family had left town. I'm all alone. I am slumped over, sobbing underneath my Christmas tree, contemplating how I'm going to take my life. And I heard this voice that said, we're not done here yet. And so that was kind of a bit of a pivot for me, because I grew up in kind of a faith circle, and my dad was a pastor. And so I was a pastor's kid. I didn't grow up that way. He didn't become a pastor until I was like 18, 20, something like that. But I carried so much shame. And I didn't realize that that was the fuel for so much of my problems. And I think even today, even if you don't have like a faith background, as men, we don't understand that there's this underlying thing of shame, pain, and anger. And those 3 years was me processing through all of this anger that I twisted to be about me. And I got angry at who I was and what I wasn't. I got angry that I should have been further in my life than I am by now. I was angry that all the world was against me and what was it trying to do to me. And when I started seeing this counselor, that's when, things started to change. But the emotions that I was going through, all of those were these incremental discoveries where I'd see this glimmer of hope. And that was just enough for me to get to the next step. And in between that was always a pit. Something didn't go right. Something didn't fit. Something wasn't going, and then like late nights singing karaoke, at the bar with barfly chicks, like not the most healthiest of environments. And so I'd go from that, come home, and at 3 a.m, I've got my nose buried in some kind of personal development book. It's just this weird dichotomy while I was bridging truth, trying to find my way. And then when I started to discover, like, I was the the whole power of everything that I was experiencing was in my hands to do something with. And I kept blaming everyone and everything else, and I played the victim. And the moment I finally started taking responsibility and says, no more of this shit. I want to experience this differently. And my counselor gave me this book called, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to look it up. The Heart. Why am I drawing a blank? It's such a pinnacle moment. It'll come to me in a second. But the whole premise is that every man seeks three things. One is a battle to win, a princess to rescue, and a story to tell, like an adventure to run. It's called Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. There you go. Thank you, neurons. And that book helped me see I actually had power in my story. And now I started making different choices. And I started reading, Tony Robbins, where he said life doesn't happen to you, it's happening for you. It's giving you wisdom, insights, and an advantage for your future. And these things started to get entrenched in my brain and in my heart, like I can do this differently. And so this other guy was writing these books in Huntsville, Alabama. And he wrote this book called Becoming the Person You Want to Be. And the whole premise of it was we're so busy trying to be something, someone, we're trying to become that person instead of being what we're already made to be, the way that the universe, the God, all of it, all the complexity of it came for such a season where mom and dad planted their seed and I was the one that was the fastest swimmer. And now what? What am I going to do with this gift? And all of creation is in this place of expansion. And how much more can I lean into that and allow my life to be a place of expansion too? And so these are all these things that I learned coming from my pain. I found something really powerful. And it's been, I wish I could tell you, like, once I got over that, it was all rainbows and butterflies. But like you said at the beginning of this, life is not static, it is dynamic. And I was watching a bunch of actors were sitting around a round table. It was Tom Hanks was the one who said the phrase I'm about to share with you. But around the table was Woody from Woody Harrelson. It was Chris Rock. It was, I can't remember the rest of them, but a whole bunch of big names. And Tom Hanks said the one phrase that he wishes he knew from the beginning was, "This too shall pass." Highs or lows, this too shall pass. You'll have those moments when things are absolutely shitty and everything's hitting the fan, and you're going to have other days where you're just like, what? This is amazing. And yet all of them work together in tandem to create a thing called life.
It's a beautiful, this too shall pass, is if people can grasp the concept of it. Like I always think about it as if you got, a boat capsized and you were the last person left in the middle of the ocean, you just look at as far as you can see on the horizon, it's like, I'm just going to swim to there. And you may reach that point and realize I'm still nowhere near shore. So you glimpse and you could get overwhelmed and go, I have no idea where I am. There's who knows what's underneath me, sharks, bloody all kinds of things. But just what's one thing that I can focus on to get through this? Because it will pass, whether it's a rescue chopper comes or you do make it to land. It's just like, look up, and what's the one thing you can do? It might be, once again, swim to the horizon and continue to keep moving, because life is overwhelming from time to time.
Yeah.
But if we do what we can, what we're in control of, and you mentioned it many times in that, is rather than playing the victim, what can I do to take ownership and take control for everything that's happening to me here? Because we're all going to experience upsides. We're all going to experience downsides. And that's just life as it plays out. And some people are fortunate enough to have a lot of upsides. Other people are dealt a few harsh hands more than others. But once again, those harsh hands are building your resilience, are building your character, as you said, Angus. And going back to, that moment when you found yourself addicted to porn, and then obviously the shame and guilt of that led you to alcohol. What do you wish you knew, or what do you wish you had around you at that point in time that you feel may have potentially helped you? And I know obviously there's so much experience and so many lessons that came from that, but if there could be something done differently, what would that be?
Cranial rectal bypass.
That's just gone straight over my head.
I have my head up my ass. I wish I pulled it out easier and faster. There's a couple of things. Well, let me start with this is I don't wish it was different, because I wouldn't be who I am today if I had not gone through all of it. I mean, that's the first and foremost, is again, understanding that you can't live in a place of regret and shame of, like, oh, I could have done something different. I wish it was better, as my computer's dialing numbers.
Mine does that all the time. And I've checked even all notifications off, and sometimes it still comes through. I'm like, how does that happen?
It's so ridiculous. How do I turn
technology? We just, for those who are not watching the YouTube, Angus and I were, so obviously I've got a travel set up at the moment. So I'm not the most amazing with setting up technology, and stuff was going wrong. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what's going on. And then my audio's ruined your audio, and we're like, oh, it's a good laugh. Making it happen, but you just get it done anyway.
And I think that's like a great illustration of kind of the question you were just asking me. Is like, why does some things happen? I don't know. I wish I knew. I wish I had power over some of the things that happen. But, to answer your question specifically, like, how could it have been different? Might be a different way we could, approach that question. I wish I had some of the friends that I have now back then, because we gravitate towards the altitude or the echelon or to the degree, whatever, of your friends. Like, I think it was Jim Rohn that said, the difference between who you are now and who you'll be in 5 years are in the books you read and the people you associate. And we imitate who we associate. And so a lot of the friends that I had at that season were not in a place of being honest and having real strong candor and not afraid to like speak up into someone's life. I was with a friend of mine having cigars and whiskey at a place that, when you come, Lockie, I will take you there.
I can't wait.
It is a little, what do you call it? One of those places you have to know the knock,
the speakeasy.
It was a speakeasy, yes. Thank you. My brain's not working today. And so it's called the Red Telephone Booth. And so you have to know the number, and then the door inside, it's one of those English telephone booths, literally. And the back of it opens up into the speakeasy. Super cool, super swanky. Got to have a collar on your shirt or a sports coat. And I'm there with one of my friends enjoying a cigar. And I was talking about how decision-making, like I'm trying to get better at decision-making. Like sometimes I'll stall on like a piece of software I need for my business, or a person I want to hire, and I might, hem and haw around it too long. And I'm noticing this about myself. I'm like, sometimes I just need to go with my gut and just make a decision. Later on that night, we're getting some food, because you can't drink alcohol without getting some food in your belly, or if it's going to go sideways. And so we went to go order something, and off the meal, she had these really cool, like, oven fired pizzas, and I'm like, oh, that sounds great. Which one would you like? I'm like, well, this one. You know what? What's your favorite? And she goes, well, I like this one. And I was like, pick one and bring it to me. I'm cool with it. And the truth is, I don't care. I'd eat either one of them. I'm not picky. However, my friend, after she left and everything, said, can I ask you something? I'm like, yeah, what's that? He goes, that thing we were talking about being decisive? I'm like, yeah. He said, well, what you do in one area of your life, you're oftentimes doing in other areas of your life too. And right now, you just couldn't make up your mind on what kind of pizza you wanted. Fuck. Oh, can I say that on this podcast? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
And I was like, fuck, you're right. You're absolutely right. These are the kinds of friends that I hang out with. And later that night, we were talking about something else, and I called something out on him too. Not from a place of like dominance or this weird, like toxic masculinity, but from a place of love and encouragement. Like, I surround myself with dudes who give a shit about my success, and vice versa. And secondarily, like, we can do what I call trade daggers. Like, if I have something that I'm wrestling with or struggling with or frustrated about, or maybe I got into a fight and with my wife and I don't have anybody to talk to, and I go to my friends and I share any of this information, it's the kind of information that if they wanted to spread it out, it would be like sticking a dagger in my brand or my person. Like, there's certain stuff I know about people that could destroy their businesses. Those are the kind of friends you want. Like, we trade daggers. And I didn't have that caliber of men in my life. And I believe if you look through our forefathers, every man had a tribe of men around them in some sort of community that called them up, called them higher. And we become so insulatory in our current state of modern manhood that we believe in our isolation, the things we think about are normal. And that everybody experiences and everybody's struggling with this. And so why should I talk to anybody about it? Like, so then we just keep to ourselves, put our head down, work hard, and don't feel. And thus all the problems start to unfold. I don't want that anymore. I don't want that for me, and I don't want it for anyone that I know.
It's so powerful having people in your life that, as you said, you can trade daggers with or call you forward. And my story is very similar, where I didn't once have that. And that's, once again, like I mentioned earlier, why I wanted to create what I've created, to have access to speak to people like yourself and various other men and leaders in the world who can hold me to a higher standard and call me out on my bullshit. And also sit there and go, oh, you know, if I hadn't had the opportunity to talk to you, Angus, but even though I've listened to a few of your podcasts, I may have just seen this extremely confident, successful bloke, and I would have been like, oh, it's easy for him because he's done this or he's worked with these people. But knowing your backstory, knowing glimpses of your backstory, I'm like, I can really relate to this, and you inspire me because you've had this. You've been through that, and now look where you are. And that's what I really want people to, you know, continue to understand, is everyone who we aspire to be like, we all have a few things in common, right? I generally believe there's been some struggle that have made us have to have a look at ourselves and get introspective and realize that, hey, blaming other people and blaming other things is not going to change my life. I have to change my life.
Yep.
Secondly, getting the right people around us who challenge us, but also we can understand their physiology, how they think, the level that they operate at, and, you know, ultimately it holds us to a whole new level of accountability. Because when I was, I guess, wasn't as confident and wasn't as certain on who I was and where I was going, if someone said, hey, Lockie, come have you know, all these recreational drugs or do this, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll worry about that tomorrow. And my whole life was just playing catch up. Whereas now I get to hang out with, you know, people that I believe are high achievers and doing great things across all areas of their life. And I'm like, I don't want to do that tomorrow because I'm going on a hike, or I got family time, or I got these other things that are really important to me. So I think it's that bit of advice that you gave just hits so hard for me, because I cannot speak highly enough about having good people around you. And it's not saying we're better or worse than other people. It's just be intentional with how you want to feel and where you want to go in your life, and allow those people in your life.
What did I say before? The difference between who you are, who you want to be in 5 years, the books you read, the people you associate, because you will imitate those you associate. And go ahead.
I was just going to say one thing, as I guess as well, if you could, maybe you may have experienced similar, or you see it with people that you work with. But for myself, 8 years ago, I wouldn't have been the person that potentially the people I wanted to hang around, if that makes sense. I was a shit kicker. I wasn't in a very good place. And because I wanted to be around those people and they didn't want to necessarily spend time around me, my choices were work towards that or just hang around the same people I'd been hanging around, which would have kept me where I was. So what I did was I sort of separated myself from both, and I lent on audiobooks. I lent on books and was like, these are going to be my mates until I get to a point where I can be valuable enough that these people want to actually talk to me, want to invite me to events. And it can be isolating, but because I had an idea of where I wanted to get to, I was prepared to take that sacrifice. Was that a similar experience for you, or even with people that you, blokes that you work with?
I think you articulated better than I kind of stumbled around. I would say now, from what you just said, sometimes you borrow other people's confidence. And when you read a book, you're like, it's like borrowing that author's level of comfort, stability, confidence, whatever, fill in the blank.
Yep.
Because I'll tell you, one of the biggest components that has held me back as both a man and a businessman is I've always tried to do everything myself. And I've invested over $100,000 just in my own personal development. And I think a lot of that was as a result of understanding that when you invest in yourself, you rise to the level of your investment. You show up, and people who pay attention. Prior to me actually charging for my coaching, I literally talked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of men who made very little change or transformation in their lives. And I believe much of it was because they just didn't pay me for it, or anyone for that matter. So, that was a good piece of advice. Will I apply it? I don't know. But the moment you have this level of accountability where now you've got this transaction of I am investing something out of my hard-earned cash into a piece of information, I'm going to put more dynamic on the information you give me. Like, I'm going to do something with that. Now the level of transformation in these men's lives is just dramatic. Like, I just got I don't know if you ever use Marco Polo, but it's like video conversations. You just record back and forth. And one of my former clients just got his first 6-figure client.
That's awesome.
And when he started with me, he was working for somebody else and he's had these dreams of doing his own business. And he's finally doing it. And he's like, how did I get here? I'm like, because you decided you wanted to. And then somebody got behind you and kicked your ass. Like, that's what happens. It's like, you say you want it, go get it. And I'm going to hold you to it. And here's what you need to know. Boom, 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 boom. Because all of this comes to the stories that we tell ourselves. So, Lockie, I want to turn the tables here as Mr. Interviewer become interviewee. Like, for you, what are the stories that you told yourself that did not allow you to give yourself permission to be the man you are today?
I was holding on to a lot of previous failures. I had a lot of opportunities with sport, went overseas to play sport, and I always kept sabotaging them. So when I hit that rock bottom point, I was in a position where I really just started to go, maybe this is all I am. The people that I'm hanging around that I keep getting into trouble with, this is all I'm destined to be. And I still remember when I actually first thought that for the first time. And it was like, when I think about it now, I'm like, fuck, I must have been in such a broken state to actually think that I didn't have any potential. Whereas I'd had all these glimpses, I just didn't have the right systems and support and belief in myself to follow through with that, or commitment. Sorry. And there's been so many other things that I've believed about myself that have held me back. And I think about this every day because I'm so excited about my life and the possibility and the opportunities. It's a lot of it comes back to what you believe is possible and actually taking time to be the architect of your life. Like, what do you really want, and who do I need to be around, and what do I need to think? Because I was a broken dude. Like, 2014 absolutely thumped me. It's always interesting when I get to think about it. I guess for me, even when I initially started personal development, I felt very overwhelmed because there was a lot of stuff that came up. There was obviously all the failure, the guilt that was rearing its head that I became aware of. But then there was also like, well, if I am the architect of my life, this is all the stuff that I can do. And it came at me so quickly. I felt very overwhelmed, and I often found through moments of overwhelmed, I would just sit because I didn't know what was that next step. Do you find that something as well with, the bloke that the client that you were talking about prior, he was in a career, and I know there's definitely a lot of people listening to this show who would relate to that, who are in a job that maybe they want to get out and do their own thing. How do you help them through the overwhelm, or how would you have helped me through the overwhelm?
I like to say entrepreneurship, when you want to do your own thing, it is not much unlike the Matrix, because we're so programmed. What's that?
I just watched the new Matrix the other night.
Me too. And unlike everyone else that's criticizing, I didn't mind it. There's some suspended belief, but whatever. It's a new thing. I rolled with it. Whatever. Anyway, the premise is we are all trained due to our industrial revolution and going into education that there's always going to be some cogs in the wheel, and we are trained to be those cogs, i.e. employees. And we are here to make other parts of the business more successful. That's what we do. And so we fall in line and we follow the protocol. I'm not trying to be so detrimental here, because some people, you're wired for having a job. So I don't want to disrespect. Don't hear me wrong. All the roles in all many sorts of industries require people who have a job. That's totally cool. What I am saying is, if you had a job and now you want to jump out of that, now you experience the Matrix. Because nothing will fuck with your head more and faster than when you are building your own thing. Because you don't have anything to fall back on. You don't have anyone else to blame. You don't have anyone else to be upset with. There's no management that you say, it's because of them. They're not giving me opportunities. They're not paying me enough. You can't say that because it's all on you. And so when you first start out, you're going to be confronted with all of your massive fears. And I love to say this, that your fears are not what you think they are. Your fears are your subconscious trying to keep you safe. But the fears are actually an invitation to call you to a higher way of being. And so if you want to go and do your own thing, the number one thing you need to be investing in right here, right now, is not the actual business as much as it is your thinking and belief about yourself. One, how do you see money? Go read You Are a Badass at Making Money. Go read Think and Grow Rich. Go read Happy Pocket Full of Money. Go read books that speak about money and how it works and how it's agnostic and how it's energy and how you actually create and manifest wealth through the understanding that you are adding value into the world. Because that's going to help you sell. Go ahead.
Sorry, just what would you say to people who are listening to this right now and they're going, you can't just think yourself to being wealthy, and a lot of, limiting beliefs that go along the line of that around money?
I'll take you right back to the Matrix.
Cool.
Your premise that you're standing on is faulty, because you're acquiescing, this is a fancy word, to resistance. You think it's not possible only because you've never experienced it. And yet tons of other people have experienced it. And just because you haven't doesn't make it not real. It's absolutely real. You just don't have the mindset and the construct in which to see through the proper lens. Which brings me back to start reading books that start speaking about how money operates. Because once you start seeing how money operates, it gives you a new construct, a new context of how to build your business. Because you can't sell your service or product until you believe that what your value that you're exchanging is up to a level that you can charge what it's actually worth. We're really good at selling other people's stuff, selling for our company, whatever. And then when it's yours, it can get really wonky at first. What do I charge? What kind of numbers should I, what kind of profit margin, and how should I scale it? And what kind of team? And then you'll start creating problems before there's even problems. You're like, well, I can't sell too much, because then if I sell too much, then I won't be able to deliver. And if I can't facilitate delivering on the product, then I'm going to, and you create more chaos in your own head. And then, like, these are the things that so many entrepreneurs, when they first get started, don't comprehend. So number one, start with your filter of money. Because now when you go to charge what you're worth and you understand your value, you'll actually put a number on that attracts higher caliber of customers. And now you can charge the kind of money that you're worth. A quick story. When I started coaching, I charged $350 a month for 4 calls, an hour a piece, once each week. $350. Do you know how many clients you need to actually make a legit living? Right?
Quite a few.
Quite a few. At least 10. That's only $3,500. Well, if you have a family of 5, that's not going to get you very far, especially in the States in a big city. So now you're going to need even more. So now I need 15 clients, and they're only going to be with me for a certain period of time, and I'm going to have to get more clients. And so you're perpetually selling. Bad model. So as I started learning more about this, and then I finally started paying a coach who got in my face and said, I want you to add a 0 to that. And I'm like, choking on, no way, no one's going to pay that. No. And like, dude, I'm closing deals at $24K right now. Like, I didn't do that before. But I started to recognize the value that I bring, that the level and audacity of making those asks is not because I have something that is magic or fancy. It is to other people, but to me, it seems normal because it comes easy. And because it comes easy, I take it for granted and I don't recognize that my gift has value. And so I'll always short circuit my gift. But once I understand that my gift is of value, and just because it's easy for me doesn't mean that it's not massively valued to other people. Because the change of someone's life, when a man comes into my world and I work with him, and suddenly he sees the world through a different lens, and he shows up with more confidence and asserts himself with his brand and his team and his wife, and now his spouse is like seeing these incredible, like, sexy qualities about his confidence and the way he interacts with his kids, the level of legacy from the money he's making, the impact he's driving, and the kind of family he's raising. How do you put a price on that?
It can't. Like, it's literally life-changing.
And you'll never get there with your business to understand that your business is to change lives. I don't care if you're installing plumbing or if you're selling rat killer, like, you're doing something to make a difference in people's lives. And until you understand that value, you'll never charge what you're worth.
Know your worth. Like, so powerful and so confronting at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it's not as easy, or for me, in my experience, it wasn't as easy as just going, righto, I know my worth, because all these limiting beliefs are festering and bubbling up. And you've got to deal with them one by one, but then you also got to maintain, or do you believe you actually need to maintain certain habits and obviously changing your environment to continue to build and solidify that belief that you are worth this, you are deserving of that.
Yeah. You have to feed your mind. Your brain is like this cool equalizer of validating belief with an experience. And whatever you're experiencing in your life is a product of your past. You are living in the past right here, right now. Because everything you're experiencing today, good and bad, is a product of a belief system you built around you. And through the course of time, that belief that you have about your identity, what you're worth, what you deserve, do you have what it takes, all that elements, your brain will go into equilibrium mode. It wants to create that validation. Like, is this experience matching with this belief? And it will seek to attract or create your level of relationships, experiences, and opportunities. And if they don't line up, we then experience something you said before. Oh, imposter syndrome. Oh, sabotage or whatever. Because you'll suddenly experience an opportunity that feels bigger than you. Your brain says, shut down, retreat, danger, Will Robinson, danger. And your subconscious will go to a place of safety. And in slow motions, like back and like, whoa, knock this off. I don't belong. and you'll say something or do something and completely put your foot in your mouth and bury that opportunity because it does not validate the level of belief you have about you. And this is what constricts us. And so in order for you to get over that hump, to expand to another level, is you have to feed your brain, like a computer, better data. And so now you start reading and listening and attending different courses and conferences and different associations of people who are on a higher level, a higher frequency, a higher energy. And they start to feed into you, and you start to believe this bigger piece about you. Like, I do deserve, I am worthy, I do have what it takes. This level of belief then comes out into the universe, and your brain starts to say, hey, let's validate this shit. And it starts to attract a higher caliber, a higher level of opportunities and relationships and experiences. And suddenly your world is popping and you're like, what? This is amazing. And you start to fuel that over and over. And this becomes this mechanism that pulls you out of what you once knew and challenges you to this new reality. Your subconscious now gets challenged and says, do I belong? Am I supposed to be here? Well, you're feeding the right information. It's like, you know what? I think I do. I think I do. And you start to expand your comfort zone and you start to get comfortable in being uncomfortable. And that's when you start living on the edge and you feel the risk and you feel alive. For the first time, I'm feeling fucking alive. And this is the place that so many people don't get to experience because they stay stuck in the matrix.
Got me fired up through that. The whole time your voice is changing, I'm just like, come on. I feel like I was going Super Saiyan then off Dragon Ball Z. I'm charged. There's the enthusiasm that we want, but it's so true. There's so many people who don't realize how good you can feel or how fulfilled you can feel once you start seeking discomfort, once you start challenging the bullshit beliefs that you have about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The moment I love that matrix model, like you can literally.
Andrew Stewart.
It's my dad.
Hi, Andrew.
Yeah, he had prostate surgery yesterday, so he'll be waking up from a drowsy little sleep.
He'll be fun to talk to.
Yeah, but people literally don't realize once you start challenging that how good you can feel and what you can create for yourself, and just the people that. And opportunities actually that you even attract into your life. Like I remember the moment that I started reading books and started having an idea of who I wanted to become. I was really inspired by this guy on stage who was a bricklayer, and he, attempted suicide. That didn't obviously happen, thankfully. And he was now speaking on stage, and I was like, geez, I relate to this guy. Like just a everyday Aussie bloke. And I was like, I want to be like him. I want to be on stage. And that became my purpose for a while. I was like, how do I get there? One, I need to learn to communicate better. Two, I need people to see value in me, like to actually what I'm saying. So how do I do that? I need to, one, start putting out content, but two, actually start upskilling and learning and seeing value in myself.
And there you go.
I became so hungry and so excited. I was staying up later, getting up earlier. Every day there was like, oh, what's the next thing I can be doing? It's exactly how I live my life now.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about what I'm creating and the people that I get to talk with, like yourself, and all these other opportunities that keep popping up. Sometimes there's so many opportunities you got to say no.
Yeah.
But it's also about having that clear vision for what you want to create for yourself that enables you to know what to say no to and what to say yes to help, I guess, in those steps moving forward. But Angus, this time has really flown. So before we wrap up, I've got a few things that I would love to ask you, because there's going to be people out there who love your energy and love your way of doing things. Where can people find you? And I guess how do people work with you?
Yeah. So you can go to angusnelson.com. Super simple. Just my name, angusnelson.com. You can learn more about me, and all the links to all the things are there. And, working with me, usually is a 3-month engagement, and I have what I call the man method. I work with men, and the first month is all built around mindset, because that's the core. So much of the stuff is between our ears. I don't care if you're a Fortune 500, if you're an influencer, if you've got a YouTube subscriber base of 500,000. I don't give a shit. Like I've worked with all of them. I've got the guitar player from, famous bands and keyboardists, and like none of that stuff matters. It's all the same shit. It's the cobwebs in your brain. And once we unlock all of that mindset stuff of how you see yourself, we move into action and accountability. And wherever you're trying to get to in your goals, if you're trying to leave to a new job, you're trying to jump to become an entrepreneur, or more importantly, you're just trying to increase the fervor of your marriage or your kids or your sense of self. All of those things are action and accountability as we move into moving the needle on how you see you into a practical expression. And I hold you accountable to making your movements. And then the third piece of that is nurture. So many men fall short because they don't prescribe for themselves the kinds of things that help them be optimal. Because if you're the difference between a McLaren, car, a sports, like ultimate exotic vehicle versus a Toyota Corolla, if you're treating yourself like a Corolla, you're only going to get Corolla experiences. But a McLaren requires optimal service. The way you change your oil, the frequency, the way that you tune that engine, like that's how you got to see yourself. So you need time, you need margin, you need reward. And how do you nurture yourself with relationships, both with your partner, with your friends? And we start to create an environment, what I call the greenhouse of growth. And so all of these principles are things that you then apply. And after those 3 months in this initial movement, this catalyst, then we can move into, other expressions where we go into an ongoing engagement. But that first movement, that's the heavy lift. And that's the most fun. Like, ask you the hard questions. It gets you to examine some shit that you didn't see before. And suddenly self-awareness and emotional intelligence starts to kick in. You're like, what is this? And like, you don't want to deal with feelings? Cool. I'm not going to take you down that emotional rope. Don't have to get on a couch and cry your eyes out. No, but what we're going to talk about is, that anger you're feeling? That frustration, anxiety you're feeling, the noise that you have in your head? There's a reason why it's there. Let's get rid of it. And when you get a man to get to that place, they come alive. And so I love to say I help remind powerful men just how fucking powerful they really are. And that's what I do.
It's the most fulfilling job of all time, right?
Yeah. Dude, impact them, their marriages, their kids, like all of it. It's legacy. And men have two mountains. It was David Brooks that said, we climb two mountains. One is the first one of career and wealth. And then the second one is meaning and contribution. And I find myself working mostly with men who are moving to that place of building something that has more meaning, a new business, a new role, or something that, can contribute. And I'll leave you with this. It was Preston Eli. There's a quote I have in my morning manifest that I share that, and I've got it on my screen. I pulled it up. He says this, he says, realize this truth. No one, and I mean no one, not the Pope, not the president, and maybe not, but Richard Branson is better than you. They simply know something you don't, believe something better than you're believing, and doing something you're not doing. Those are all things you can change very easily.
That's beautiful, that.
Yeah.
And so well spoken. I've got one last question for you.
Okay.
And I never prepare people for this one. I like to put blokes on the spot, but I think you'll nail it. I know everyone will. And the reason why I don't prepare people is because I love people's unique answer, because we do have a stereotype around what it means to be a man. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that doesn't fit a lot of blokes. That's why there's so many unhappy and unfulfilled people out there. Mm-hmm. There's going to be people out there who resonate with what you respond to this, Angus. And I'd love to hear what your definition or what it means to be a man.
What does it mean to be a man? Nothing to gain, nothing to prove, and nothing to lose. Showing up with your power of support and supply. Being available to lead people in places that they don't yet not know where they're going. Like, being a man is being able to stand in a place that you're comfortable in your own skin, and knowing that the strength and resilience you have in your masculinity is something of contribution and help to others, not something to pole position or politic for your own esteem.
Could not have said it better than myself. Thank you so much for sharing that.
That just came out of, that was really good. I'm glad you're recording that. That was really fun.
Don't worry, I'll send you a copy of that. You can utilize that. But Angus, once again, I truly appreciate your time, and I think it's I'm so grateful that we have the opportunity to connect over technology in this day and age. But I also look forward to dropping you a DM when I'm heading over to Nashville, so we can grab that beer and show me a few of the saloons and all that sort of fun stuff over there, which would be awesome. But mate, what you're doing is honestly so needed, and you're someone that I believe holds a lot of integrity and someone that I can really relate to what you've shared. So for anyone out there listening who gets value from Angus, I hand over heart would highly recommend having a yarn with him, because he could be the person who helps you change your life.
Awesome. And I say mutual for you. Thank you for creating a platform for men to have conversations like this, to see that we're not alone, that they can tune into, discover, and stumble upon men having real conversations about real shit. It's powerful, dude.
Appreciate it, brother. And just the final bit for everyone listening, if you have gained value from this episode, make sure you head over, give Angus a follow, but also share this episode, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, whatever platform you listen, share it, because our show grows through your support and your recommendation, and also leaving reviews. So every time you do that, it's truly appreciated, but also helps another bloke out there realize there is value in these shows and the guests that we have on. So thank you for your time, and thank you for tuning in.